And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
It's not just big, it's huge.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. I'm Jeff Morey, and I'm your host. This week, I have a special guest who is part of a very special mission joining me. His name is Professor Sylvain Rochon, and he is a public speaker, best-selling author, futurist, entrepreneur, expert in AI, and a visionary. I recently learned about his work with the AEDC, which stands for the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, where he is one of the founders and a spokesperson. The Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact is an international network of diplomats, politicians, government officials, experts in extraterrestrial affairs, and interested people with the shared goal of welcoming extraterrestrial civilizations to establish diplomatic missions on our planet. He's had a fascinating career and is doing some remarkable work, and I'm excited to talk to him.
The Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact is a non-profit international network of organizations and professionals who support projects leading up to the formal welcoming on Earth and diplomatic contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. As soon as our humanity and the political leaders governing our world will be ready to do this officially in an internationally recognized embassy. We believe there are many advanced civilizations neighboring our galaxy, and one in particular has been observing and preparing us for a long time for an eventual encounter. They are simply waiting for us to become more supportive of a peaceful and open contact. Building an embassy with the support of the United Nations would show extraterrestrial civilizations that we are ready to become an integral part of a greater galactic community and to embrace the science, technology, and wisdom of more advanced civilizations. Alliance members would benefit from the progress of this project on all levels. And if they wish, they could also be involved in the planning and construction of a scientific, touristic, and economic center built next to the very first embassy for extraterrestrial diplomatic contact. Join the Alliance network and help make the Extraterrestrial Embassy project a reality. Be part of the most important event in human history. Contact us at our website www.alliance4et.org.
So at this time, I want to welcome Professor Sylvain Rochon to the show. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Jeff.
Before we talk all about the AEDC, is it okay if I use the acronym for that instead of saying the whole word out every time?
Yeah, it's a mouthful, so yeah, use the acronym.
I figured that'd be easier for people to follow along with. Would you please tell us a little about you and a little about your background?
Well, I started off in the sciences, so I have multiple university degrees. I started off in biochemistry, and I also did a chemical engineering degree at the university. University of Ottawa, for those interested, that's where I'm from. Ottawa, Canada. And then I did an education degree, and my first career was just like high school teacher, really, after that. That's what I was doing. But since I was a teenager, or even before that, I was fascinated about the universe and how everything kind of came together, what makes sense, the mysteries. Like I was really into the paranormal, for example, because those were just mysterious things that didn't seem to have an explanation, just bothered me. It's like, ghosts and ETs and like anything I could put my hands on that no one seemed to want to touch because it was just unexplained. So I got into Eric von Daniken. I got into all sorts of people that are just legitimately trying to put an explanation on things. The pyramids, all these stuff that you think about. I was into that, not because I was mystical about them, but because I was trying to make sense of the world. Like, where do these things fit? Like, are they real? Are they not? Like, is it our imagination? That kind of thinking, right? So after a bit of time, I met an individual and a group of people through my father, actually. We brought home a book that was called Those Who Came from the Sky, or what was it? The title changed a couple of times, I think, in this book, but it was at the time it was the book that told the truth, I think, was the operational title. Now it has a slightly different title, but anyway. It was a book written by what we call now an experiencer. So somebody that had contact with an ET in France. His name at the time was Claude Vorillon, the Frenchman. And he had over 7 days he met an ET that called himself Yahweh, like same as in the Bible. He says, "Well, that is me," he said. 25,000 years ago or and change, we came to Earth, created life on Earth, and we sent messengers and guided humanity early on. And then eventually, like, we'll come back at the age of apocalypse, which means revelation from Greek, not the end of the world, like some people think, right? And revelation meaning like being an age of understanding, like be able to things can be revealed, like what is our past, and that really appealed to me because it was a book that put some amount of answers into what I was seeking. Not like on the ghost pieces so much, but on the ET and where do we come from, that kind of thing. And so I got into that. And one of the things this man who ended up calling himself Rael while he was giving that name, actually, um, he was given two missions. One was, well, tell people about what I told you, so the creation of life and our contact with your ancient your ancestors and so on and so on. But also start creating an embassy for ETs, because when we come back, we want to avoid conflict between human nations. We want to follow the human rules of first contact. So he agreed to that mission. This is 1973, 1974. So I read this. It was the mid to late 80s in my case. So I latched onto that because that explained a lot of things. And as a scientific-minded person, it made sense, connected with a lot of dots. It's not proof of anything, but it explained a lot. So fast forward to today, I was involved with the ET Embassy project within the organization that came out of that, called the Raelian Movement, at a distance, not really closely. And then in 2020, so not that long ago, I had a feeling that things had changed on the Earth about how people perceived extraterrestrials. So I'm giving you more than my background. I realize this. I'm giving you more of a history.
This is what people want to hear about. So,
all right. And the feeling was, well, you can talk about ETs on the kitchen around the kitchen table now, and people don't really blink. Like, it was not ridicule. It was more like asking questions about it. So the winds had changed on that topic of UAP and so, and the disclosure movements got started really strong at that time. Like, people were talking about it. So I had a thought, like, wait, within the Aurelian movement, which is a philosophical group that emerged out of a contact over many years, raised a bunch of funds for the ET Embassy, but it was a project that was handled by a philosophy or a group of activists, really, because the Aurelian movement is kind of an activist group about multiple things, including those two missions, but a lot more things than that. So I contacted the person in that organization, Daniel Turcotte, about this. It's like, well, look, Dan, it's like things are changing now, and this is a project that belongs to humanity. It doesn't, like, it has to be organized by humanity, not a philosophical group that has a bunch of other missions other contexts. It has to be like focused on that because the embassy has to be built, and we have an organization that has to. We need to create an organization that's going to guide it to its goal without all the other attachments of other messages and other missions and activist groups and all that stuff. So he agreed. We contacted Rael because he's still alive. He's still with us. It's like, what do you think? He said, like, go for it. So it's like, okay, we got the blessing of the person that got the embassy project started, which allowed us to bring them in as partners to access the funds they rose, the sensitivity that was brought into the market. Like, so we brought that in and created the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact as a collection of organizations and individuals and scientists that want to see this done, that wants to see the embassy, agnostic to everything, just big tent, everybody come in, bring what you got, what you built over the years, your resources, whatever. We're getting this done, right? Now, after officially we registered in Canada in 2001 as a not-for-profit. It's a completely volunteer-based organization. Through the collection, the collectivity of all the organizations, which is now, I think it's 36 organizations, representing about 2.2 million people in total. We have plans, we have videos, we have $50 million raised to get the project started as an offering to a nation that wants to get this done. In 2000, early on, packages professionally done were sent to all the nations. We got half a dozen nations are interested in providing land. Because it has to be official land under the Vienna Convention, like it's called extraterritorial land under that, to make an official embassy, not just a building in a field somewhere, right? And one of them, a couple of months ago, one of those nations signed a memorandum of collaboration with us and the Aurelian movement combined to discuss, moving forward with this.
Are you at liberty to say which one it was?
No, I know very few of the nations that we are contacted. This is Daniel's department. Like, he's the president, I'm the VP. I'm responsible for the development of the network and growth of the awareness. Danielle is doing all the diplomatic discussions, and they are all the discussions are under strict confidentiality. So unless I was involved in some way, I don't know which nations he's talking to. There's only like 3 people that know. And this is on the request of the nation states. They don't want a leak to occur from our side, so they insist on that level of confidentiality.
I guess there's still a lot needs to take place in the meantime before you would disclose that type of thing to the world anyway, right?
Yeah, and it's the agreement we have with all of them is that we're not the ones that will make the first reveal. That's a requirement from them. Like, they want to control when the new information come, how, and where. So, and ultimately it has to be this way because when a nation wants to establish an embassy from any nation or under the Vienna Convention, they have to declare to the world, not in secret, they have to declare to the world, we have a new, like, it's public knowledge, like, we're making an embassy for so-and-so nation on our land, it's official, so that everybody can recognize that an embassy, right? So it can't be done in secret. So that's the process for them. It's like, look, like, you can't say anything. We'll declare it in the media when we're ready. So that's if they choose to do it, and any nation can do that at any moment in time. And as soon as something like that is declared, other nations typically just accept it as an official embassy because that's how these embassies are structured. This one is a bit odd in a way because typically the host nation gives land to another nation, and the other nation, it becomes the other nation's land, right? And building. In this case, it's not a human nation; it's a civilization from elsewhere. So it's a bit different, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions from other nations about how to interpret that. Which is why the optional protocol process is, if you've read about it on our website, is part of a way to kind of adapt to the slightly different situation where the embassy would be in. And I can always talk about what the optional protocol is. It's a bit technical, but
I mean, I guess the bottom line is the Vienna Convention would basically have to be completely amended at this point, wouldn't it? So to speak.
well,
I mean,
that would be the ideal situation. However, to amend the Vienna Convention, you would have to have the agreement of all the signatory nations. And when they wrote the Vienna Convention in, I think it's 69, they thought of this, like, okay, this is going to be very impractical to amend, the convention as a whole. So they establish an optional protocol process so that you can attach. And there has been two protocols. Basically, these are not amendments, but additional components that nations can choose to sign off on or not, to ratify or not. So it gets attached, but it's optional. Nations don't have to agree to the optionals if they don't agree to it. And the Vienna Convention as a whole, the way it was written, remains intact. That's the mechanism, right? So that's why it would be an optional protocol to say that says basically, and we have on our site, we have a downloadable version. Like that's a suggestion for us because the nation state would have discuss it in a convention and write something different probably. We have a model, but it basically adapts the language to the Vienna Convention to an extraterrestrial civilization. And so it's not that long, but there needs to be a different language because the situation is a bit different. But applying the same diplomatic immunity and protections of diplomats that would come from outer space to what we currently have for ambassadors here on Earth in our nations. So that should be the purpose of it.
Look, before I go any further, I'm going to ask you this because this is what a lot of laypersons and a lot of non-believers are going to say. So I just want to get your take on this. I think there's no question that you and I believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life, but technically, it has not been proven that there is indeed life beyond our planet and our solar system. So I'm sure you get asked this all the time. Why spend so much time, so much money, so much effort to facilitate something when we still have not yet technically confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life?
Yeah, it comes up a lot and for good reason. And like I said, I'm a scientist. I don't have more proof than the listeners do. I really don't. So it's a leap of faith on the side of a scientist. Well, I have a strong feeling about this. Like I said, like this was something that was like in my gut since I'm a kid, right? Like trying to understand how all these things fit together. So I have a strong feeling that extraterrestrials were involved in our past. They are still involved in some ways now. But it's a belief. It's a hypothesis in the scientific framework. Like I'm emitting this hypothesis and I'm doing all this effort to see whether or not I'm right, which is it's a leap of faith. And it does apply to sciences. Like you gotta do something and then, okay, well, let's build an embassy. Let's build a framework. Let's prepare everybody and let's see what happens. It's an experiment to me, right? But I have a strong feeling that this is going to happen and that we are visited and so on. Because others that I've learned to trust, including Rael and a bunch of others, like over the years, have had or continue to have contact with ETs on a personal level. And, you always have to put your question marks like, okay, is this person sane? Is this person hallucinating? Is this person seeing things that are not there? You got to ask those questions, right?
I think we're past that point, aren't we? I mean, there's enough experiencers and enough people in this world that you can't just rule everything out. There's too much evidence. There's too many experiencers. Yeah. I mean, here in the United States, I know you're in Indochina, but here in the United States, I don't really know. I need to explore a little bit more about the world, but I feel like we're moving towards some kind of disclosure event. Like they're throwing us breadcrumbs. I talk about it all the time on this show. It's one of my biggest topics of interest. It's one of the biggest things that I cover. Some of our elected officials, we have multiple congressmen and women. We're having UAP hearings constantly in Congress. We're getting a lot of breadcrumbs thrown our way. Of course, Steven Spielberg is releasing a film this year. Age of Disclosure was released last year. So I mean, it feels like they're leading us into something. So what's your thoughts on that for the remainder of the world, I guess, per se, not outside? Because I only know what goes on in the United States. I can't tell you as a U.S. citizen, and I've talked to some of our elected officials. I can't tell you what's going on in the rest of the world. What do you view as the rest of the world's?
Well, it's good because I do have contact with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Because the alliance is international. And as a Canadian, my perspective was Canada, US for a long time, right? Pre-internet, mostly.
Right.
You get access to what you got here. Now I'm in China, and the network is really international. Um, I can tell you three stories that kind of like summarizes what's happening in the world. One is the American story, which the one that you know, and most of your listeners probably all of you know, disclosure, Roswell, all the jam, right? And it seems to me that there has been a lot of contact for a long time in the US and North America in general, and possibly some with the government in the past. Military certainly has really good investigative capabilities and sensors on UAPs. Like I would be as confident as saying like there's registered proof of unidentified flying objects that are non-human. And I think that's some of the statements from some of the professionals are say that way. Like this is not human technology. It can't be. And we can't explain these away. Was it? I forget the name of the report. It was a report that was released as part of disclosure a few years ago. This was from IRO. I think it was like 104 um, investigations on UAPs from the Air Force and whatnot that are still unexplained. And they still don't know what those are. That's a lot of unexplained, especially since we have radar, we have video. Like you got a lot of material that can be poured over, and experts were put into it. So that's the American perspective, and I think there's a lot of proof there. If you go south into Latin America, that's the second story, I guess, to paint a picture. Everybody from elected officials to common folk around the dinner tables, they talk about UAPs and UFOs like it was cows and cats in the field. Because they see them all the time. Everyone does in Latin America. It's just a fact. But just seeing something strange in the sky doesn't prove that this is aliens and stuff like that. So they still have, there was a crash. Wasn't it in Brazil? I think a number of years ago, and there was like they saw ETs on the street. Some people discovered them. Like they have stories like that too that are more like close encounter from a closer kind. Also,
Yeah, and there's more and more of these stories that are happening all the time, and I feel like a lot of them are being I don't know, they're being covered up. You don't hear about a lot of them in the mainstream, but we get little tidbits of them. I've heard a lot of these stories you're talking about. I think I know the Brazilian one you're talking about in particular.
Yeah, because it was also back in the news recently, right? That particular story. But the point is in South America is that they have big UFOs clearly in the sky over populated cities in daylight. Like it's not like a small speck that flies around, like the stationary objects that take videos and pictures of them. Like it's for some reason that happens there, but you don't see that. Like, have we seen like a large 2 kilometer wide UFO over New York City in the state? No, that hasn't happened. That would be reported by like 10 million people, right?
Phoenix Lights.
Yeah, but there are some, but they're sneakier, it seems, in the US, less obvious. In Mexico, is like I had a friend of mine, which was funny because he was organizing a conference. This was in Lima, this is Peru. A conference about extraterrestrials and the embassy and that kind of thing. This is many years ago, so maybe 10 years ago. There was a reporting of a UFO just like that, broad daylight, over that particular city during that day of the conference. And it was in the news, like, clearly, like videos. These are Peruvians. They're just like, yeah, okay, here's another one. Right? And my friend, he's from that city. He came out of the conference center. He looked up. It's like, there it is. And it was on the same day that it was giving the conference. This is Latin America. This is stuff that happens there, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Peru per capita have the highest amount of UAP sightings in the entire world?
I don't know the statistics, but there's
I
a
want to say
lot
that they
going
do.
on in South America,
Yeah.
and it's increasing. Yeah. And because they're so obvious, it's really hard to disprove them because, I mean, this is not a plane. You know, that this is not a balloon. You can, with your own eyes, you can clearly see these things, right?
Well,
So
I think for context too, you got to think, because the prevailing theory I feel like is people just write this off as military tech a lot of the time.
Sure.
When they see something that's unexplained. And I think what people need to understand too is this is Latin America. I'm not disrespecting any of those countries in any way, shape, or form, but their technology isn't approaching what the United States or China or even a Russia's technology is. That, these countries do not have, we know for a fact these countries do not have this kind of technology. So, I mean, I think that's something you have to take into account when you're seeing them in some of these third world countries. And yes, I guess it could be a United States, some kind of U.S. tech that's down there, but why would it be there? We have our own testing grounds. We have our own areas. That's just my 2 cents is, to add a little bit of context and perspective for some of these sightings down there in particular.
Absolutely. And each one of us has to be a bit of an investigator. Right? You see something unexplained. The default should not be, this must be an ET driving it. Like most of the time, like especially if it's like a distant, fuzzy, whatever, it's probably not what you're thinking. It's probably something explainable. It's a satellite. It's a reflection. There's a bunch of things. So you got to go through the process. Okay, what could it be? You eliminate those possibilities, and if you end up with something you still don't know, then it remains unexplained. Then okay, it could be an extraterrestrial drone, could be like different things, but usually it's something else. Just because people are not trained to really look at, and some people they wish it's ET, so they go to that first. But there's plenty of observations that are really like clearly non-human, right? So there are many of them. It's just there's an abundance. The third story is the rest of the world. I'm putting them all into one bucket because there's variations by nation and by continent, but generally speaking, there's way less discussion in the rest of the world about ETs and UAPs, and there are less apparitions, let's say, of all kinds. There's some, and some good ones, but the volume is much lower. And in some nation, because of that, in some nations, it's just not part of the conversation at all, because it's not part of their lives. There's no need for disclosure because there's no landing or any kind of stories about that. Right. It's just, like, well, let's talk about something else, right? So the rest of the world is kind of like, compared to the Americas, generally speaking, they're sleeping. They're not really talking about it. There's a few nations like Japan where it's really hot. There's some exceptions, but not for particular reasons that I'm aware of. So that's the picture of the world. So it gives you a sense that, disclosure is really like strongly happening in the States, particularly. In Latin America, it's day-to-day life stuff. And these are the exceptions, but that demonstrates the existence of them anyway. Right? Just because they're not active as much elsewhere doesn't mean that they don't exist at all, right? They just appear more in the Americas.
Let's talk a little bit more about the AEDC. You brought up that you have received $50 million. Is that what you said in funding so far?
Right. That's what's accessible to us, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, are you able to disclose a little bit about where that came from? Just the sources and the revenues that you go about your funding. I'm sure that's what a lot of people would have an interest in that.
Yeah, an important point. It's also the nations that contact us. They want to know where that comes from too. They want to know if it's real. Right? Well, that was a fund that was started in 1974. So it's not something we raised by, some billionaire like last year. It's from donations to the Raelian movement. By people that believed Rael at the time. in the special fund just for the construction of the embassy back in 1974, because he had this mission. He set up a bank account at the time, and then people just started donating specifically for that. And that's been growing and reinvested and all that stuff since then. It's still an amount that's controlled by the Iranian movement, but they've partnered with us, the Alliance, we adopted the same mission as them, but it brought it to everybody, right? So now they're contributing, or they're pledging, let's say, their bank account with their purpose for our success in the embassy, as well as their support and things like that. So any organization that joins the Alliance is bringing something to the table. That's one of the things they've accumulated for years and years and years. This is what, 50 years, right? Growing in amount from donations. The Alliance itself would like to have its own fund, and we'd like to get that started. But most of what we raise is also donation based, and it's for operations that we raise the money. Because $50 million from that partner is enough for a development project like this. If people out there that are in real estate or doing big projects, especially if it's buildings and land, you don't need to have all the amount for everything. You just need seed money, right? $50 million is not enough to build an embassy and everything, all the infrastructure that's supposed to be around it and all that stuff. No, you have seed money to get things started, get people interested. You got developers that come in and build on it. So that's the amount we have access. That's where it came from. We are still raising from donations, and the Alliance is likely to have to start its own separate fund for the embassy, so that we control a little bit of that. So if anybody out there is interested in kicking that off, we have plans to get that started too. Yeah. So money still rules, right? You still need it. And it's in our discussions, like they always ask, like, do you have funds to kick this off, nations? And do you have, like, how many people also are interested? Would they come to see the embassy? They want this to be to create jobs in their own nations. So they want it to be like a Roswell or a Giza pyramid situation, where people come because they want to participate in the vision.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the embassy, or the proposed embassy, I guess I should say. Can you talk about, I guess, a lot of the questions people are going to ask? Number one, the size, the scale, the design, how many people is it going to hold? I mean, I guess theoretically here, we've never made technical contact with any extraterrestrial. So we could have 10 different species that have 10 different types of atmospheres. So you could be talking about, 10 different meeting rooms per se, I guess, where you'd have to have 10 different atmospheres or something like that. Just talk a little bit about what kind of the thought process is here and the actual design and construction. You see the model in your background behind you. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the scientists and the experts have put into this, and what moving forward they think they're going to end up with for design?
Yeah, we're making some assumptions here, and we're also basing ourselves on, in the case of this embassy, the architects worked on that in 1990, and that work they got started, and that was off the story and the direction from Rael, right? So this was all designed for the ETs he met, which were they look, in his case, they look. They're the size of like a teenager, or a child, like a 12-year-old child, humanoid.
Is this the prototypical gray aliens that we usually hear about?
Kind of, not really, because they look really like the grays look more like clones. Like they don't look like they're complete. Like they may be biological drones that are sent. No, they are the same size. The eyes are a little bit larger and almond shaped, so and the head is slightly bigger, but their skin is more like olive green, not gray. And they look a lot more like, aside from the slight difference with the eyes, they look like a child to us. So they're very, very much more like human looking. And so the embassy was created for human-sized people. not so as far as size is concerned. There's a lobby basically. There's a conference room, and then there's an airlock, and then leading into the donut, what we call the donut, like in the shape, which is a living area that has I keep confusing numbers. I think it has 12 units in it. All right, so people they can come and land, and they're in an airlocked area where they can inject whatever atmosphere they prefer, like a sealed. And then there's another airlock in the back, and there's another room that can be that is multi-purpose, right? So you have like 3 rooms outside of the donut. You have 3 different rooms for purposes, and then you have the living area where they can land and access the living area. So it's just an airlock. That's the high technology there is just the airlock, because the assumption here is that they won't be giants. They won't be like tiny cat-sized critters either. Like they're going to be like human-ish size. So all the ways are up designed so that it can accommodate this. Doors and whatnot. Since we don't know the atmospheres, we're not sure who's going to come exactly. We're just creating the infrastructure so that they can put the atmosphere they want. That's it. The other assumption, this is more like mine when I'm thinking about this. Like there are likely not just one extraterrestrial civilization that's watching us. From all the accounts that I'm reading about, that I'm talking with, most of them are humanoid. They kind of look like us. Some of them are a bit different and so on. But there are many kinds, and they come from different worlds. So we don't know what's going to happen on the point of contact or first contact, or who's going to come exactly. Some different organizations have different ideas of who would come first, that kind of thing. For us, as far as our project's concerned, it's like first come, first serve.
Right.
It's like just
that makes sense. I mean,
any one of them come, we'll be happy. Like
we'll welcome them.
There is going to be able to adapt to it. But what's most interesting, I think, in our conversations is that the embassy is not really for them. It's built to accommodate an ET civilization, but it's for us. Let me explain this. We're following the Vienna Convention to get this embassy built, instead of having just like I said, a building in some field somewhere. We were offered dozens of times, a land built here, even from Aboriginal nations offered us, because they have close ties with ETs in North America, South America, in Australia, Puerto Rico. We've had offers from a lot, but they can't give extraterritoriality under the Vienna Convention. And we need that, because we need this to be a safe place for us. The Vienna Convention has rules that says diplomats are safe when they go there. This is a place of diplomacy that we all agree on. All the nations of the earth, we agree this is where people are going to meet for diplomatic contact, diplomatic missions. Because what the fear is, even among scientists, in a situation of first contact, is that, let's imagine there's no embassy and a ET arrives and says, take me to your leader, like that.
Right. The stereotypical Hollywood.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm landing in front of the White House, or I'm landing in a field somewhere. It's like, okay, we're here. Everybody knows. It's very clear. It's obvious. Take me to your leader. Okay. How much fighting would there be between nations when this happens? It's not like the movies, right? Like, if it happens in Russia, the US are gonna and China are gonna come, and they're gonna say, look, no, we want to access. The Russians gonna say, no, it's ours, but it's on our territory. There's gonna be all this mess could trigger massive destruction among ourselves. ETs are they're gonna fly away. It's like, look, man, this is not my problem, and we're gonna destroy each other, right? If we do this right under the Vienna Convention, there's prep time. There's a declaration that the embassy is going to be built for this purpose. People are going to have time to think about it, and they're going to talk with each nation. And what does it mean? Like, should I have my own embassy? And because any country can just build an embassy. Like, they can just settle down and build an embassy and say, well, this is also for ET. I want to have dibs. That's fine. It's great. We don't need only one embassy. Like most nations have an embassy for all other nations. Yeah, build more than one. We just want to build the first one. We're fine, right? But it's the ambassadors that come have diplomatic immunity. And every nation agrees this is an embassy for ETs. We all know, we all agreed it was public prior to a visitation, an official one. There's this discussion that happens saying this is what's going to happen. These are the rules for embassies. We know them. We've been using them since 1960 something, right? That's what really needs to happen. That whole process pre-meeting. It doesn't need to have to be long, but we build the embassy, it's declared, we get used to it. Nations position themselves in the eventuality that something is going to happen. They're going to discuss access, all that stuff ahead of time, at least a little bit. And then when it happens at the embassy, nobody's surprised and everybody knows the rules. That's protection for us. These ETs that are coming, they were likely able to cross the distance between the stars within a reasonable amount of time, thousands of years ago. They have technology that we don't understand, that we don't know. They don't need an embassy to contact us. They probably don't even need to come to Earth to contact us in our own brains. They can probably send messages to 8 billion people at the same time, say, hello, this is who we are.
Right,
I'm just creating a TV in your mind and talking to you right now. They can do that. They have technology to do that. We will in 5,000 years. We went from the Stone Age to internet and AI in less time. Okay, like they're fine. They are watching us and waiting for us to be ready and prepared so that it's safe to make that contact, just like you see on Star Trek. You know, Star Trek, the Prime Directive, love Roddenberry. Like you see all these scenarios from science fiction. It's like it's a bad idea to make contact too early. The people have to be ready in a certain way. They have to avoid infighting. And then they teleport down. Hello, here we are. You know. So first contact may be like the way I envision it. There's an embassy. People know they expect some kind of craft to come. That's what they're going to give us. It's like here's a craft. You know, slowly coming down. People, you know, dropping the staircase and walking down into the building. And I joke around, they maybe carry briefcases and suits. Yeah. And, you know, like be as familiar to us as possible. You know, sit down at the table in the chair in front and then have a conversation. This is familiar to us. We're cool with that. We understand this kind of meeting, non-scary, non-threatening, right? Second meeting, the spaceship just appears on the landing pad. Pop. And they walk down. Same deal. It's like, oh, they can do that. It's like a little surprise. You know, after a while, they're just like, you have an ET and a hologram in your living room. Because people are just like, yeah, they're around. I can have a conversation with them now. And they can do that, right? So I think they're going to ease us into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their level of technology, personally, I believe they can bend the actual fabric of space and time. And I think people just view it as conventional travel with warp drive or something from Star Trek. But I think basically they create some kind of either interdimensional travel or some kind of wormhole or something where they can actually bend the fabric of space and time. That's not just Jeff's personal theory, but you know, and
distance between the stars is are crazy. You know, the Alpha Proxima, which is the closest star to Sol.
Yeah, how many billions of light years?
4.5 light years away.
Yeah.
Right. So using conventional propulsion, the maximum you can do is speed of light, but that requires infinite energy. So you can't do that. You have to go at a fraction of the speed of light. So 4.5 years travel time at the speed of light. If you go half the speed of light, that takes 9 years. At least that's doable in energy, right?
Right.
Half is still like, that's really fast. It's a lot of energy, but it's not infinite. That's 9 years. You got it. And in between stars, there's nothing. It's super dangerous to spend 9 years. You know, if there's a problem, there's no air, like it's all self-contained. It's a big problem. So
There's no parts and there's nobody to fix anything if anything breaks down.
no. So
So
you have, big ships that have to have all these redundancies and recycling systems, and you have to be able to repair. It's a big thing. It's complicated. It takes a long time. That's a long part of our life. So doable. You can send drones that way. Like Voyager is still,
right.
traveling. Like it's just, it's still transmitting, though weirdly right now because it's old. You can imagine a drone, like a robotic, AI-driven kind of vehicle, way more. It's still going to take years just to get there, and that whole solar system may be empty of anything. It's just exploration. So anyway, my point is, these extraterrestrials that come here especially if they come here frequently, have one or two things. They already have a base around that we just can't see or detect, so that it's more comfortable. You bring a bunch of resources, you have something here inside the solar system, or they can do the trip using non-conventional means. And yeah, we have a bunch of theories about how to do that. Bending space-time is one of them. Wormholes is another one, and there are probably a bunch of things that we just don't know, and that can speed up that process. But in principle, they're likely not traveling space like from point A and B, like we're thinking about, like a race car.
Right.
They're doing something funky to space-time to kind of and bypass the conventional physics. Yeah. But we don't really know. We just have theories. And warp drive is an actual human theory. It's not just science fiction. It's warping space-time is an actual engineering design that we can't yet build. But eventually, maybe in 30 years, we could have a prototype of a warp drive. Like we're actually not bad with science. We can figure things out, and eventually we will find ways to travel space at faster than the speed of light, even though because you're not actually traveling that speed, you're bending the rules of space.
Right.
That's what you're doing, and then you're popping yourself into a different area real quick. Anyway, so that's more like physics and quantum mechanics. So.
Yeah, well, it's a little deeper for this show. We'll you can save that for a physics podcast.
Yeah.
Well, Professor, I'm going to ask you. I mean, are we ready?
I think we are. Well, you have to think at two levels. One is the political level. The other one is the popular level. The population's ready. There's always going to be people that will dismiss or freak out on a first contact, even 100 years from now. Talking about the general population, as we as a population, we always operate on a bell curve. You always have edges, but most people are the feeling like when I talked about 2020 went from when you have conversations from a very much like fear-based. Like if they come, like, am I going to be safe? Kind of like thinking, or just disbelief that they don't exist, right? To like I'd like to know, like more like curiosity now.
Right.
Like I'm curious. I'm a little afraid, but I'm curious. I would like this to happen. I would in a safe way, like in a non-aggressive way, because the question of is it possible they could be aggressive does come up, right? So there is a concern, but it's not like it was before where they were like, this is going to be really a big problem. It's this more curiosity, concern, asking questions. So that means to me like population is thinking about it, and they're positioning themselves in that situation in their imagination. So when it happens, they know how to behave. They know they've prepared. They've had conversations now, and they're having more conversations. At the political level, not ready yet, because very few governments are having those conversations. They're concerned with, rightly so, earthly matters, mostly, but they're not having the conversation about what would happen. How would we manage this as nations with each other? That's where the embassy comes in, because we are triggering a lot of conversations with nations that are in conversation with us. There has been some backroom conversations in most nations, I'm sure. Different people, like in the States, you have some senators and some Congress people like talking about it. It's like, yeah, this would be a good idea to be ready to. Let's hear Mr. Grush. Let's blah blah blah. All these committees. Not all nations are like that. Some nations are, some nations aren't. The U.S. is politically, I think, ready because of the disclosure discussions. Something happens, there's been all these discussions. The South America is ready already politically because each individual has had contact in the sky, and the population's already on board.
Yeah,
The
it's just
rest
part
of
of
the
their
world,
culture at
case
this
by
point.
case.
So.
Yeah. So our work with the embassy, when we're doing my work, which is more the advocacy, kind of putting the information out there, that helps a lot the general population, but also helps policy makers bringing that into the political conversation at the national level, like being prepared. Should we build an embassy? Maybe not. Let somebody else do it, but let's have the conversation, like that kind of thing. So in the next few years, especially, and I can tell you, like since the MOC was signed with a certain nation, a memorandum of collaboration, that was not a secret document. It was not, no one in the mainstream news picked it up, but it was disseminated in the public. Like we did our part. The movement did their part, and other organizations kind of picked it up in our network and that kind of thing. Some news and podcasters talked about it. It's public that there's a nation that's in active conversation to make this happen. So more nations that have had interest in the past few years are looking back at it and asking themselves the question. So this whole laying out information out there is creating more conversations in the back rooms of governments about the topic. When a nation officially declares an embassy, that's where things are going to all the discussions in all the nations are going to happen simultaneously. There's going to be a convention. There's going to be a discussion probably at the UN. There's already a committee about UAP and possible official visitation of the UN that was triggered. That was Project Titan by San Marino, actually, a couple of years ago, I think. So these discussions have started and they will accelerate, especially if there is an embassy announcement by a nation, then it's going to become real, right? People are going to say, okay, we officially have to talk about it because people are asking questions now a lot more on the top level. With that done, with the embassy kind of settled around laws and rules internationally, the whole planet's ready. So for us, from then on, it's basically just keep doing what we're doing, advocacy, education, and it's a waiting game. Like, is somebody going to come? Because I'm not an experiencer. I'm not sure. I'm making a bet. And I think it's a good one. But I'm still making a bet. I don't have tangible proof myself. But I'm making a bet. Once we lay that out, there's going to be an announcement, there's going to be some sign, and then they'll come at the embassy or elsewhere. Because the embassy doesn't need to be used, really. It just the existence of the embassy as a structure allows us to be ready for maybe they're going to do something. Maybe they're going to pop an embassy in each nation and make an appearance in each nation. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But they can do anything. Really. Right. Once we're ready, they can do some pretty interesting things.
I think it's a good bet too. And there's millions and millions of people in this world that agree with you and would agree with me. So before I let you go, how can people support the AEDC and its goals moving forward?
Well, mostly is to talk about it. So talk about us, talk about the project, talk about how neat it is. Contact your political leaders about it, make it known that it's of interest. Contact us if you want to volunteer time, resources, you have some ideas, whatever. Go to our website. You can get in touch with it. But our main goal, really, what we need to do openly is my task, is to to spread the word. So the more people that spread the word, that know about this, I would love to be, for example, I'd love to be on another podcast like Joe Rogan, like a big one.
Right.
Get the word out really wide. Well, if you have access to that, let's bring me on there, right? Anything to spread the word is good. And you, Jeff, you are playing a part here because you are spreading the word. And this is a humanity project. So everybody can contribute in any small way they can to bring humanity into readiness more and more. And then we'll see, like, if we're right and they're waiting for us respectfully to be ready, they'll come on their own terms. And then we'll have a blast because that's going to be transformational for our civilization. Yeah. So
it will change the course of history, everything as we know and everything as we understand.
I think so.
In the first day.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. Interesting stuff that you're a part of, Professor. Thank you for your time. Best of luck. I can't wait to see what the next decade brings for the AEDC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode. And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.